Hello and welcome to the Retire Strong podcast, a show that helps you to protect what you've built and face retirement with courage, confidence, and strength. My name is Eric Scoggins. I'm here today with my co-host, the lovely and talented Jaclyn Gladhill. Jaclyn, how are you doing today?
Oh, well, Eric, that was the best intro I think I've ever seen. I love it.
Oh
I
my
mean,
gosh.
and we can't lie. You do have enormous muscles. So we'll just put that out there. You are not only the person to go to for financial advice, but maybe you're the one to go to for physical strength advice as well.
Well, I don't know about that, but I know I've discovered you're really good for my ego now. So maybe we should do this twice a week. We need to spend more time together.
Yes, I would love that. Well, Eric, I'm great. We are getting, we're recording this on a Thursday, so we're
Yeah.
halfway through the week, and I'm excited for the weekend. But how about you? How are you doing?
Yeah, super good. Here in Georgia, we're starting to get really nice weather, and we bought a new toy. So I don't know if you ever heard of a slingshot before, but it's like a gigantic go-kart. So I've been tooling around a lot by myself in that, Melissa, and of course, my son that I never had, Max, the boxer. He and I have been riding around, and I got to share some pictures with you. So he's the coolest dog in town, riding around with his goggles on, and
Oh,
kids are waving to him. So we're looking forward to a good ride this weekend.
oh, that sounds like so much fun. I mean, it's not only fun for you, it's not only fun for Max, but it's, everyone watching, everyone, like you said, the kids. That would just be a joy to watch. So I
Yeah,
love that.
I kind of feel like the cool old guy now, because when I pull up beside of SUV with kids in it, they roll the windows down, they're waving to the Batmobile, right? I'm like, so
Yeah.
I feel like a cool old guy now.
Oh, well, that's a blast. Well, Eric, what is on the agenda today for this episode?
We got a great one today lined up, Jaclyn. So we're going to talk about the importance and the power of a written retirement income plan. Because this is kind of the foundation and completely essential to long-term retirement success. I kind of liken it to goal setting. We talk a lot about goal setting in life and business, and a goal is never a goal unless it's written. Unless it's committed to paper, it's reviewed, it's adjusted, it's modified over time. There's basically, if you just have, if it's not written, if it's a goal and not written, it's just a hope. It's a dream. And it's really what brings power in life to visions and goals. It has to do with that, writing that down, committing it to paper, and continue to revisiting that time and time again.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's so true. I think people talk about all these retirement dreams. I think we all have retirement dreams. And, we just rarely write them down. And I am a huge advocate for putting things on paper, and you remember it better. You have goals, and even putting it on your mirror in the, beginning of the day or
100%.
whatever. And
Absolutely.
so, can you share with us why writing it out specifically can make such a big difference?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a few things. One of them, I think it's one of the mysteries of the world. There's something about the subconscious mind when you commit a goal to paper, that the subconscious mind starts moving things to help, to you, and brings people to you, and starts working to help, move you closer to achieving those goals. So obviously, there's different ways to set goals, but there's certainly one that's very popular out there. A lot of people have probably heard, a lot of our listeners, called SMART goals. Have you ever heard of that acronym, SMART goals? And do you know what it means?
Yeah. So, Eric, we've talked about this, and I know, in all of my schooling and background, it's so goals are specific,
Right?
measurable,
Right?
attainable,
Mhm.
realistic, and time bound.
100%. So there's something, like we said, about the subconscious mind, when you get it as detailed as possible, that will help you move closer to accomplishing that objective. For example, as it relates to retirement planning, you just can't say, "Hey, you know what? I want to retire, someday with a lot of money and be comfortable." The subconscious mind cannot do anything with that. So when we talk about being specific, it needs to be something like, what? Hey, I want to retire in 5 years. I want to have a net income of $75,000 a year that increases every year by the rate of inflation. And I want to make sure, I carry this all the way out to my assumed life expectancy is age 90. And I want to make sure I have a minimum of, say, maybe $500,000 for legacy. That's what I mean by being specific.
Yeah, well, and that's a great point. And I think when we talk about being realistic, the realistic part of that too, it's do some research. And I know, Eric, you do all that research for your clients. You're talking about the age calculation and, what is realistic for their income and, all those things. And so to have you in their corner is definitely helpful to create those smart goals. But that can be a mouthful. So can you
Yeah.
simplify, what comprehensive, holistic, written retirement income plan means?
Yeah, we talked about that in the office today, Eric. Come on, we've got to tighten that up because that is a lot, and you're right, it is a mouthful. So, what we refer to that written plan that addresses all 5 of the key areas that need to be addressed for a successful retirement. In our firm, we just simply call it the ETS Retire Ready Plan. And of course, we always want to make sure that when we create these plans and co-create them with our client family members, that we keep them updated, we keep them organized. We'll actually put everything in. Not only just their plan into a financial inventory binder, there's also an electronic version of this, but it also has all the important reports that you need as far as performance and portfolio analysis, stress testing the portfolios that you have to make sure you're not taking more risks than you need to or want to in this most important season of one's financial life, Social Security maximization report, a game plan for strategic tax, we call it tax shifting to minimize taxes all throughout one's retirement lifetime. So yeah, the binder organizes things. It keeps it very, very simple, and they bring those binders in when they do their annual reviews and things of that nature. And we even have an electronic version of that binder, which we call the generational vault. So everything can be stored in one place. It has all their financial life with a click of a button. Even accounts they have with us, but also accounts they have outside of our firm, can be uploaded and be a part of that generational vault, so they can have a one-stop snapshot of all of their financial life at any given time, 24/7.
Wow. I mean, I love that. I love having a binder. I love having it all in one place that you can just go and look at. And this kind of relates to me. I'm going through the wedding planning phase, right? And man, I mean, having all things wedding planning in one binder is great. You can take it
Yes,
with you, take notes, have it there. And it's one thing to remember to grab out the door, right? And
100%.
so I love that. And what are kind of the key parts of this plan or what's included in this binder exactly?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's really 5, as I mentioned earlier, 5 key and essential areas that need to be addressed for one to really be able to not just get to retirement, but to get through retirement successfully and really enjoy that happy and worry-free retirement that we all have worked our entire lifetimes for. But before we get into the 5, which I want to break down for our audience, let me talk first about a couple just key fundamental things that we have to be aware of before we dive into this. The first thing that I think is key is you really need to understand what financial season of life you're in.
Mhm.
So, everybody has 2 financial seasons. Either you're in the accumulation phase, right? You're either 8 years plus away from retirement, and your goal is obviously to build, and accumulate. During that season, obviously, you can take on more risk. You can maybe take a bigger hit in the market and still have time to recover. Our specialty is focusing on those that are 7 years out from retirement, either retired now or getting close to retirement. We call that the distribution phase of one's financial life. So first and foremost, know what season of financial life that you are in, and make sure that if you're working with an advisor, working with a fiduciary advisor that specializes in that particular season that you're currently in with your financial life right now.
Yeah, that's a great point that I never even thought about. I mean, you guys as financial advisors and fiduciaries, you guys can specialize in those things and we don't necessarily think about that as clients, and consumer facing. And so
Exactly.
I love that. But what is the second fundamental thing that we should know?
Yeah, it dovetails exactly into what you just said about not knowing the seasons, right? As you need to know who you're working with, right? So
Mm.
it's crazy, but it's true. There has always been two standards of care in the financial world. So you need to know who you're working with, right? There's what's called the fiduciary standard of care, which is preferable, right? You want to make sure you're working with a fiduciary that puts your interest before their own, before their firm that they work for. So you want to make sure that you are working with a fiduciary. And if you're, 7 years out from retirement or retired now, you need to make sure you're working with a fiduciary that is a retirement income planning specialist. Okay. You want to make sure that you're not really working with someone who's under what's called the suitability standard, or if someone says, "Hey, yeah, we act in your best interest when it's appropriate." That's not what you really want to hear. So you really want to make sure, which unfortunately a lot of these big banks and brokerages out there, up and down the street, they fall under what's called the either best interest or the suitability standard of care, which doesn't require them at all times, as a fiduciary does, require them to act in the client's very best interest at all times.
Okay. And so that makes a great point. I mean, making sure that you are working with a fiduciary specifically. But can you explain how someone can tell if this advisor or if this person is a fiduciary specifically?
Well, yeah, that is a great question, and it's a very important question. So, I mean, first and foremost, just casually, you just ask them. Are you legally required to act as a fiduciary at all times? And if they say yes, they should be able to explain what that means, and also ask them, "Are you willing to put that in writing for me?" Again, if you get hedging comments, "Hey, we act as a fiduciary, when appropriate." That's not the same standard. Probably even a better way to determine, I would still say ask the question because you want to see how they respond to it. But also, if you can be mindful of if they have any professional designations. So, for example, I'm a certified financial planner. So, if you're working with a certified financial planner, they are always held to the fiduciary standard of care. So, obviously, that's important to know. Also, if someone is a registered investment advisor, or if they are what's called an investment advisor representative, so RIA or IAR, those individuals are also held to the fiduciary standard, and they should have a couple disclosure documents that they can provide to you. An ADV, Apple David Victor, ADV Part 1 and an ADV Part 2, which are disclosures that will again confirm that you are working with a fiduciary.
Okay. I mean, that makes sense. We're getting now into the acronyms here. So I'm just going to repeat those. I mean, so Eric, you have a CFP, which is a
Correct.
certified financial planner. And
Correct.
then as clients and listeners and viewers, you should be aware of looking for a CFP, an RIA, or an IAR.
That
So,
that is that is correct. And see, I'm a CFP, but we are all of our advisors in the firm. We have 5 advisors in the firm. They are what's called independent advisor representatives. So we all have ADV Part 1 and Part 2, and haven't pulled the trigger yet. But hey, spoiler alert, we're like this close to becoming our own independent registered investment advisory firm. So that'll be a big
wow.
milestone for us, and we're in the process of working on that actually right now. So it's
Well,
good
that
stuff.
is super exciting. Lots of
Big
things
milestone.
happening in your office.
Yep, good stuff.
Well, sounds great. So let's continue on to or go back to what we kind of touched on earlier, which was the 5 key pillars of a retirement ready plan. So where do we
Yeah.
start with this?
Yeah, let's dive into that because we'll roll through these fairly quickly. For the first and foremost, obviously, when someone is getting ready to step into retirement, there is obviously a certain monthly figure that they want coming in, hell or hot water,
Yep.
recession, depression, it doesn't matter, so they can really enjoy the fruits of their labor. So number one is making sure you map out that income that you want for the rest of your life. Another important question when you're mapping that income out is saying, okay, ask yourself, how much of this income, maybe it's 7,000 a month. You want that net income spendable coming in. Well, how much of that income do you want coming in as what we call a sure thing It's
Mhm.
guaranteed. It's not going to fluctuate because the market's fluctuating. And how much of that income are you comfortable having coming in as what we call a maybe? So making sure you know what's a good percentage, and obviously your advisor can help you come up with the appropriate percentage for you. But that's key. How much of that income do I want coming in? Sure thing. How much am I okay with that coming in as a maybe that can fluctuate with the market? So
Mhm.
mapping out income for the rest of your life. Second part of that is also making sure you have a game plan to create rising income all throughout your retirement lifetime to offset taxes, offset inflation, build wealth for future security, long-term care, legacy, things of that nature. So that's the first one. Number two is making sure that you're planning for your spouse if you're married. So we all know, when a spouse passes away, that we lose the Social Security. You get to keep the larger, but you lose the smaller one.
Mhm.
If there's a pension involved, sometimes there is a loss in a pension income when a spouse passes away. So how do you subsidize lost income for a surviving spouse? That's something you want to plan for and be aware of up front, and not have the surviving spouse, blindsided, as
Yeah.
you're building the plan.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what a lot of people don't really think about. What happens to our spouse, or, how do we do that correctly? That's a big question, an important one too.
It's a big mistake. A lot of folks don't even plan for that. So that's another reason why you need to work with someone who specializes in retirement and is aware of these potential pitfalls.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's number 3?
So number three is what we call the financial wild card for retirees, and that happens to be long-term care, home
Uh,
health care. Uh, I'm here to tell you, Jaclyn and all the audience, that there is not too many things out there that can completely decimate a lifetime of diligent savings and investing than a long-term care situation. I mean, the numbers are real. The numbers are real out there. The odds that you or I will need long-term care by people over 65, basically it's 70%. 7 out of 10 people are going to need some type of long-term care assistance, either in a facility or in their home. And
wow.
as we all know, it's not cheap. When you talk about
Mhm.
the average cost for home health aid is like $64,000 a year. A private room in a nursing home is about $108,000 a year. So
Wow.
you got to have a game plan on how you're going to address these costs. And we call it the financial wild card because we don't know if you're going to need it. We don't know how long you're going to need it. We don't know how much you're going to need. But we always talk to people about, look, something's better than nothing. You need to have
Mhm.
a game plan to help protect the asset base. Take a small portion of the whole and allocate it to create some leverage. So if long-term care comes into your life or your spouse's life during your lifetime, that you've got some tools that can create some leverage. Maybe 100,000 or 50,000 will double or triple in a need if you need long-term care. And Jaclyn, one of the scariest and just crazy statistics I just came across recently was Alzheimer's and dementia. I mean, it
Yes.
seems like every time we turn around, we've got someone either in our relational circle or in our client family that has been diagnosed with
Mhm.
Alzheimer's or dementia. Have you looked at the latest stats? Do you have any idea what the latest stats are on people being diagnosed with either Alzheimer's or dementia?
Yeah, I don't know, and I'm hoping that you have those stats. I mean, I
Yeah,
know from my experience, I know many people, and I've also heard that Parkinson's is also related to Alzheimer's and dementia, and those
sure.
numbers are also going up.
Absolutely. And the other one is ALS. We've had two
Yes.
clients this past 2 years with ALS. So here's the staggering numbers. Someone is diagnosed with Alzheimer's or dementia every 65 seconds.
Wow.
That is over 1,300 new cases per day. And here's the even scarier part. We've all heard about, okay, long-term care. I'm going to end up in a nursing home maybe, and it's going to be 3.5 years on average. Well, long-term care is a progression. Most of the people want to be cared for in their home, right?
Huh?
And then maybe it's a couple of days a week I need help. Maybe it's 4 days a week, and maybe now I need to go to assisted living facility or memory care. So it's a progression over time. But the number when it comes with Alzheimer's and dementia, just for that. If you're diagnosed 65 or later, the average life expectancy is over 8.3 years. So we're talking about a lot of money over a long period of
No
time.
kidding.
And the reason most people have not looked at newer tools to help protect their assets, their dignity, and their estate plan is because most people are only aware of traditional long-term care insurance. And traditional long-term care insurance is really not the best. It's a solution, but we don't believe it's the best solution. There's newer tools out there that can provide better protection that's not use it or lose it. And that's the problem
Yes.
with traditional long-term care insurance. If you never go in, you've got nothing to show for all those premiums but cancel checks.
Yeah. Well, those are great points, Eric, and I love the statistics that you shared. I mean, obviously, I don't love the outcome of what those statistics mean, but it puts numbers in your head, right? And for our viewers and listeners, it is kind of a realization through those
But
numbers for sure.
it's a wake-up call, and that's the
Yes.
reason that we have these conversations with our client family members now, so they don't have to realize, a horrible outcome down the road.
Yeah. Well, so far I think number 3 is the most important to me, but what is number 4?
Okay, so number 4. So when you step into retirement, regardless of how much money that you want to keep deployed into the market, right, exposed to market risk, making sure that you have implemented what we refer to for our client family members, a loss mitigation plan to protect the downside.
Mhm.
So not if, but when we go through that next 2008 or that next Great Recession, people just don't bleed out, like they
Yeah.
did during those seasons. And so we call that loss mitigation plan. So you want to protect, have a game plan to protect against market losses, because in this season of one's life, when we're in the distribution planning, this distribution phase now, or planning for it here in the next 7 years, Jaclyn, we just don't have time to make up for big losses in the market.
Mhm.
So
Absolutely.
it's extremely important not only to implement what we call a loss mitigation plan. That's tools that have pre-planned, a defined outcome tools that have automatic downside protection. The other thing you want to make sure you're doing is, we talk a lot. We wrote a couple books. Our latest book is Retire Strong: Your Guide to a Happy and Worry-Free Retirement. This is actually Retire Stronger, the second edition. We talk a lot about the colors of money. To keep things really simple when it comes to asset allocation. So the other thing to make sure you're protecting and you're allocated properly is you want to have red money, and red money gives you 100% upside potential of the market with 100% downside potential as well. So that's where the horsepower is. Yellow money is those tools that have that loss mitigation already built in, right? Doesn't matter what happens to the S&P, you're going to have downside protection, maybe all the way down to 15% protected. If it markets down 15%, you don't lose anything.
Mhm.
And of course, green money is anything that cannot go backwards because the market is going backwards. So you want to make sure you have allocation to all the colors of money and making sure that you have that loss mitigation plan as well.
Wow, that's great to know, and I love the relationship between those and colors. We're talking about a written plan and how beneficial having things written down is, and it's also extremely beneficial to color code and keep things, related to colors, because that helps you also remember and memorize and also keep it apart from one another. So, all right. Well, thank you, Eric. And what is number 5, our last final one?
Yeah, as we tag third and head home here. So number 5 is really doing everything you can to create as many tax-free buckets, creating a tax-efficient retirement income game plan. So we're talking about entering into what we call a wise and strategic, systematic plan to start doing what we call strategic Roth conversions, starting to take all of these qualified retirement plans, IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, that money went into tax deductible, it's tax sheltered. When it comes out, it's going to be 100% taxable. Making sure that you start into a game plan where you're starting to migrate those over to tax-free buckets of money.
Mhm.
This will be one of the most important financial decisions that you make for not only your entire lifetime, but for your legacy as well. There's some positive things that have happened, right? The with the one big beautiful bill being passed, basically the Trump tax cuts are still in play. So we have at least another 4 years where taxes are still on sale. We know what taxes are today. We don't know what they're going to be, 5, 7, 10 years from now. Most people, when I ask them if they think taxes are going to be higher or lower in the future with a $37 trillion debt load, usually it's unanimous. Taxes have nowhere to go but up. So now, if you start converting now, and we have software that we can use to help people determine what's the right amount to convert today, not to maybe go into that next bracket that I don't want to go into, or so I don't increase my Medicare premiums, right? I don't want to make too much money to have to do that. So we want people to start thinking more about what we call macro tax planning, a couple terms here, versus micro tax planning. So what is micro tax planning? So micro tax planning is really where we all live intuitively and emotionally. It's where CPAs, it's where tax professionals live. It's doing everything you can in your power to save the maximum taxes in this single one given year now.
Okay.
And that's conventional wisdom. That's the way the government wants you to think. We want you to kind of get out of that box of conventional wisdom and start thinking about macro tax planning. And so what is macro tax planning? Macro tax planning is doing everything you can today to minimize your taxes over your retirement lifetime. So that might mean taking a little castor oil now while taxes are on sale and doing some Roth conversions to move that forever taxable money to forever tax-free buckets of money. And the other benefit to that, when you do that, when you get to the time when you have to start taking your RMDs down the road, your required minimum distributions, you don't have those buckets as big because you've made some smart decisions to start converting along the way. The government wants those buckets to get as big as possible. They want you to defer those RMDs all the way out to, when you're forced to take them out. It could be 73, it could be 74, it could be age 75, because they want those accounts to get as big as possible, and they want you to take out the minimum of your lifetime. We want you to take a preemptive strike against the Internal Revenue Service and start getting some of those moved over now while taxes are on sale, thus giving you much better tax strategy and tax planning ability when it comes to your income down the road.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. I mean, that's definitely a long one, but a most important one. And it's also very important to, you know, contact you regarding that, because there's so many questions in just that bullet point that, clients need answered. So, how can our clients get a hold of you, Eric?
Yeah, so a lot of ways. They can actually go to our website, etswealth.com. They can request a complimentary consultation there. They can simply call into our office, 770-904-1978. We have a phenomenal team of 10 just phenomenal people that are here to serve and take care of our client family. So it's really important to do some planning. If you're looking for an advisor or you're looking for that second opinion, it's just as important to get a second opinion on your health, and it's just as important to get a second opinion on your wealth as well. And unfortunately, it's impossible to get an objective second opinion from the person who gave you the first opinion.
Yes. Well, Eric, and I just want to remind our viewers and listeners that they can get a no obligation consultation with you and your team there, and request a copy of your book and all of those resources that you have. And also with our listeners too, we are able to be on video today. And so if you are not checking us out on the YouTube channel, please do watch our next one or rewatch this one so you can see all of the resources that Eric has shared on screen and on camera. So, Eric, any final thoughts? And then we're just going to close out for today.
Yeah, I just want to kind of tie it all together and just mention, look, if you don't yourself create this comprehensive retirement income plan that addresses all 5 of those critical areas of successful retirement, if you don't do it or you don't work with a fiduciary retirement income planning specialist to help you co-create that plan, you're never, ever going to have the opportunity to accomplish what we refer for our client family members as the priorities.
Mhm.
And what are the priorities? Well, Jaclyn, the priorities are when you lay your head on the pillow at night, that you never ever again have to worry about a 2008 taking half of what you have. You
Yeah.
don't have to worry about lowering your standard of living in retirement or ever outliving your money. And there may be some listeners thinking, you know what? Those are some pretty important priorities for me as well. Maybe I should give ETS Wealth Management a call and take advantage of that complimentary consultation. And if they come in, we will give them a complimentary copy of our book, Retire Stronger, and we will actually sign it for them. So if they
Wow.
hang on to it long enough and outlive us,
Yes.
it might be worth something someday, right?
Absolutely. Well, Eric, that sounds like a great plan. And for our listeners and viewers, this podcast is available. So Retire Strong Radio is available on Apple, Spotify, and Amazon, as well as on YouTube now. So, Eric, what a wonderful episode. And I can't wait to see you next week.
Hey, and the final thought here is, hey, just think of this consultation. If you'd like to take advantage of that, just think of it as a very, very relaxed and comfortable, just get to know you meeting. It's an opportunity for us to get to know you better, opportunity for you to get to know us better, and just to see if there's anything that we can do to add value to your life. And we would definitely hit the easy button for you.
Yeah. I love that. Well, alrighty. Well, we'll see you guys next week. And that does it for this episode of Retire Strong Radio with our host, Eric Scoggins.
Hoorah!